Everyone, welcome back to another episode of Built in Ohio, the Ohio X podcast, where we're talking with and about the people, companies, and ideas that are building out our state's tech opportunity, our tech hub, the Silicon Heartland, as lots of people like to say. But we have a great guest today. We have Brendan Gualdoni, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Aries Solutions, a strategy-led firm specializing in composable commerce and agentic automation, a pioneer in SaaS modernization for retail. Brendan is a leading expert at transforming complex digital ecosystems into streamlined, high ROI engines for growth. Brendan and his team are dedicated to delivering end-to-end accountability, ensuring modern software works intuitively for both users and business owners. But Brendan, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here. Are we talking to you from the worldwide headquarters in Westerville, Ohio?
Yeah, we're at HQ in Westerville at the Cohatch. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate this.
Absolutely. I know we've briefly talked about this a month or so ago, but the Westerville Cohatch, that's one of my favorite. We have, we use Cohatch too, and so I use it all across the state. But I really like the Westerville one. It's pretty
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. I mean, it shares the parking lot with the North High Brewery, which is
Yeah,
nice. Free coffee's great. Love the little insider track about where this is. This is actually the old armory.
yeah.
So it feels like you're in a bunker at sometimes because the sound of suppression. And also the best part about the hidden secret is there's a vending machine that only dispenses beer from North High, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, I like it also in part. They have a very nice like coffee, espresso type machine that's, just the real quick so you can go get a cappuccino or whatever. But,
Yeah, I
but,
feel
but
like I'm in an airport lounge sometimes here.
right. Yeah. Yeah. You're working out of the Centurion or the Chase Lounge or something that,
Yeah.
we don't really have those in Columbus. So it's a novelty for us when we get to experience those. But yeah, Brendan, welcome. Tell us, I know I've just read your bio a bit, but tell us a little bit about you. Really interesting background. You've worked for some really big companies. Aries is also an interesting company, a bit newer in the grand scheme of things, but you guys have seen some really fantastic, it seems like, early success, early growth, and have a really incredible team that's doing some really great work all over. But tell us about it if you could.
Yeah, yeah. I'll start off just my simple tour. I'm a self-taught software engineer. I'm originally a finance grad from a college, university north of Ohio in Michigan. Um, just started, this is back in, when the internet was born. I'm probably the oldest person here at Aries. I'm the adult in the room most of the time. And because of that, learning how to write code and putting up web pages just turned into a career. Early on was I was bounced around a bunch of .coms in Chicago. After that, I head into retail. I've been in the retail space for 15 years. Originally writing software, but then managing, growing, scaling teams, and it's grown from out of e-commerce into the MarTech space. So if you think about content management systems, search, payments, and of course the big thing is after I left Sears and was recruited to come to Columbus and work at Express.com was challenging. How do you take on the monolith application and make a CMO happy, a chief marketing officer happy? So they're the ones who are driving the business, go as fast as possible, experiment as much. How do you drive ROI? Try stuff, stop stuff, using the agile method of like, we only wasted 2 weeks, that's fine. Here's something else that's more important. And while I was there, we pioneered a couple things. We started the DevOps practice.
Mm.
We moved them from on-premise infrastructure to cloud. So think about this was over 10 years ago when people were just starting to really get their when AWS was finally becoming very much more mature. Move them to a headless platform. The big thing is moving to a SaaS platform. That was a big deal because everyone's like, well, we trust our data center and we trust our other data center that to fail over. And then introduced their iPhone app, their Android app, an in-store app, buy online, pick up in store. So from there, that group of people that we originally built the software is part of where Aries started. Um, Jake Mays, the CEO of Aries, Tim Steele's the CTO, I'm COO. We all worked together at Express and built something that was quite incredible. It was honestly a machine. After we left, they actually took what we built and turned it into IP worth about $400 million asset, which they were able to leverage to buy Bonobos as an example. So what we're doing differently is not just installing software or connecting software. Our background and mission is modernizing enterprise stacks, putting stuff in there that actually is useful and you can actually make money off of. So it's flexible, drives ROI. Some people call this future proofing. We just call it being pragmatic and being honest with people, of saying, you know what? I understand you want to buy software X, Y, and Z. You really don't need all that. Why don't you look at this other thing here that will actually fit your use case better and more flexible? Because we like to avoid the vendor lock-in. Aries was started at the opportune moment of March 2020. Yeah.
That's when I laugh because we started December of 2019. Obviously, we do. We're not as smart and as tech
Hey,
savvy as you guys,
you
but
guys started when
good
nothing
timing.
big was going on. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, that always sparks the origin story. Where were you when this thing hit? I
right.
was in my, I'm a big skier, so I was in Lake Tahoe, and we were
Mm.
not skiing because everything just got closed down. But I've I've been behind the scenes as an advisory to Aries ever since the beginning. Jake is truly the founder and took the initiative to actually make it a company, took the leap, took the risk. And then later on, I believe it was in fall of 22, Tim Steele joined as CTO. From there, we put more rigor around engineering and the agile practice, more about the delivery and the engineering versus just selling a client and landing it and implementing it. I started officially January 2025, so I've been here a little over 18 months, and it's been quite a ride since then. We've had some really big breakout years, 2024, and then we comp 2024 in 2025, and we're on track to comp 2025 again.
Wow.
By some large order of magnitude. Just to give you an idea, in January of 2025, we were about 70 associates. So the majority of the associates, the leadership is North America, Columbus, North Carolina, Chicago, Edmonton, Alberta, and Montreal. And then from there, like I said, we had 70. So we have an office in Buenos Aires, Argentina, Chennai, India.
Mm.
Now, today, 18 months later, we're close to 150 people
Wow.
with 4 different practices. So originally it was just mainly e-commerce and cloud. We've really branched out, which we can talk about later.
Yeah,
Depending on
yeah,
which
yeah.
one.
What are the? I mean, starting e-commerce. What are the four now?
Yeah. So with e-commerce, in working in the area, we're working in SaaS software, which just basically means you're connecting it through an API. You're not installing the software. It's always at version production, as we like to call it. Cloud was a normal, connection because a lot of companies didn't have cloud. How do you connect to this thing securely, so on and so forth. So e-commerce and cloud were the original drivers of the company.
Mhm.
From there, we added on our order management systems, or as our practice lead likes to call it, order of operations, because order management just really means, hey, how am I just sold you something, how do I ship it to you? But the way we think about it is what about returns, and what
Mm.
about how it's going to get shipped, how it's going to get returned, the full life cycle of a product. Next, we started a practice for experience design, so UI and user experience, which has helped a lot. We've had quite a few engagements there already. Then the next practice we started was in product.
Hmm.
So this is not product and like, hey, how do I develop a physical product in retail? How do I develop this shirt and
Sure.
sell it? But more, how do I create an organization that's constantly building the tools it needs to not only operate, but how to drive, new revenue streams. This is
Yep.
the practice of product management, and whether it's, you know, it encompasses change management and also identifying opportunities and costs and risk in the organization, actually create a roadmap, because a lot of organizations, while they're mature in their industry, they're not so much mature in how do you operate the full life cycle of that operation, the digital operation.
Sure.
And then the last practice, which is not going to be a surprise to any of your listeners, is an AI practice.
Hmm.
This was born out of, we are, just to give you a little background, what we do every day, most of the people in the organization, they write software on behalf of our clients. And everyone was always worried about, hey, you have AI that can write this. You have stuff like Cursor and OpenAI and Grok and Claude Code and Llama and so on and so forth, all these different pieces of software. So we were looking at software that could be an implementation partner to help jumpstart our engineers. And we went through a couple rounds of companies we were looking at, didn't land on anything we actually liked.
Hmm.
But ironically enough, one of the companies, um, the co-founder, lost funding after 3 years and was like, hey, I really like the discussions we were having. I would like to work for you guys now that I have the opportunity to do that. And luckily, as it has, the person's in Westerville and actually did have a membership at Cohatch. We found
Hmm.
all this out later after we were, talking and networking. So those are the six practices currently that are driving the organization forward.
That's awesome. And what has that been like? And you mentioned you've been there about a year and a half, but advising from the beginning. How did you all think about like adding those, right? Because you start with one and to go to two to three to four plus,
Yeah.
that's a big thing, right? And you're trying to scale people, and that's a challenge I think a lot of businesses struggle with, and I've seen it over the years, just on things I've worked on, and even in our own work of, how do you juggle that, balance that, know when to do it versus, hey, maybe we're not quite ready for it yet.
Yeah. I wish I had some really sexy AI reason
Right,
or
right.
explanation, but it's kind of like how I said how e-commerce was our back, or is our core
Hmm.
background. And to launch some of our e-commerce initiatives, we needed cloud for our clients. So it's like,
Sure.
okay, we need that DevOps practice, the cloud practice. Similar with UI and UX, we've lost some deals where clients will come to us and they usually want, in an ideal situation, a CIO wants one piece of software and one implementer to do it all because it's easier from procurement,
Sure.
finance, so on and so forth, management. And we didn't have a UI UX practice. So that was like, okay, that's a signal to us that like, hey, if we hear another one of these things, or if we find somebody in the space, our network that's great, let's consider spinning up a practice.
Yeah.
Same thing with order management. You know, in the digital space, the way I like to say that we our playground is, we start from PIM, which is product information systems. Like, an ERP will define a product to sell or service, but a PIM drives the marketing language, the videos, titles, descriptions, and all those pieces that show up on a web page.
Mm.
And we go through the whole website, content management, search, payments, checkout, commerce. And then at the end, it's like, what do you do with this order? We have to ship it to an order management system. So
Hmm.
that's the boundary that we play in. And what we were finding was a lot of our, not a lot of them, a handful of our major clients were like, listen, we need both.
Hmm.
Everyone thinks like e-commerce can solve it because everything sits on a web page, and the mission, sometimes business has this idea of like, well, no, I saw it on a web page, which could be the web page connected to that piece of software, which means e-commerce can do everything. Which,
Yep.
if you have the right partner, you can, and the budget, you can do anything you want.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, what we found were clients that looked at it and said, okay, so e-commerce is just the selling, you know, portion of this. How do we manage the order when it's done? So
Mhm.
that's why we got into the order management space. And then of course along the way, we've picked up a lot of good partners.
Mm.
So because of that need and listening to the signals from our clients, we've identified some great partners that we work with who have either standalone order management or e-commerce and order management together. It just depends on what the client need is. I mentioned this before that we're very pragmatic and we don't like to oversell. Actually, the sales department is shockingly small here at Aries. And it's probably because of the way we approach projects and
Mhm.
approach selling in our customers. And what that translates to is we have a very um, short list of partners
Mm.
because we're so passionate about what we do. That means we're very opinionated about the software that we want to implement and the software partners we want to work with. So that's part of it. But then also it just doesn't have to be cool software. It has to be cool and useful that we can sell. So our partner list is surprisingly short.
Mm.
There's some software companies, you know, that have been chasing us to be partners with them, and we're like, hey, we know what you guys do, we know what our ICP is. It's not a good fit. So that's how the practices were starting, and just a little bit more about how we approach business.
Yeah, well, and I'd love to kind of dig deeper on the that approach and going from, the tactical, right? Because these days there's a million and one pieces of software that you could consider, you could put into your menu, right? And if a client says, "Oh yeah, well, give me five options," and you say, "Well, here's 50," right? And
Yeah.
so you could you could take that approach, but it sounds like you all have found a really good fit with being very strategic, that is, very focused on having, as you say, being opinionated on the pieces of software you use. So how have you kind of thought of that as you all have built and scaled Aries of, hey, we're not here to just do a tactical checklist of this and that, but we're here to be, an implementer, a builder, an advisor, and these are why we have these deeply passionate beliefs.
Yeah. So a lot of the way we've approached this, actually, the way we've approached this is, after you meet with a potential opportunity and you identify a problem, and a lot of clients are like, yes, I want to do that. I don't know where to begin.
Mm.
Or my software stack looks like, you hear things like on premise, mainframe, connected to legacy, connected, on the other side, you hear stuff like, hey, our warehouses are antiquated or our ERP is rigid, things like that. So without going into the heavy detail of those conversations, what we start with is strategy with them, and this is the difference between that transactional systems integrator. Hey, I got a problem to solve. Oh, I'll give you an SOW. I'm going to solve just that thing. Versus, hey, we hear an opportunity. We meet and partner. There's partnership with our clients, which is one of our core values. And because our integrity, another core value, is let's look at your company holistically.
Mm.
Let's see the landscape that's really there. Let's talk to not only the person who's going to sign the SOW or the person who's going to fund that project, but let's talk to the teams on how they're going to operate it and how things can change, and find out what other projects or initiatives that are going on. That way, when we put something in place, it isn't a burden. It's
Mm.
actually something that's part of their roadmap. So that's the strategy part, and that's how we actually start a lot of our engagements. And then from there, that strategy, uh, besides building more trust and deepen the relationship with the client, what it does, we're generating a roadmap that is akin to our next pipeline of projects,
Mm.
because a lot of these projects, while they are usually a minimum of 6 months or longer depending on how many capabilities we're trying to put in place for that customer. um, a lot of Since I'm in the retail capital of the country, a lot of our clients don't want to launch, past October 1st. They still
Mm.
have that huge window of retail holidays. So that's why the roadmap then becomes a bigger lead generation for us. But what happens a lot of times is those clients of ours come back and say, okay, hey, we have this next thing going on. We really like the way you guys worked. Can we work again with you? And just to one of those ways that we do that, and what makes us different, the value proposition of Aries from any other agency is the sales team that you're talking to. After we've identified the potential problem or project that or initiative that we need to help you with, and we go to that next meeting, which is a discovery meeting, the solutions engineer that we bring into that meeting isn't there to sell. They're there to listen. But if we do win that deal, they're part of the SOW. So it's that team that you're going to see all the time and then move forward with, which just makes us different. And that, I think that's the difference between a transactional partner, vendor versus a strategic partner. And that's helped deepen these relationships. And quite honestly, it's helped us grow. Like I said, 2024 was a breakout year. This will be another one of those years, and or 2025 was one of those years as well. And every year, the growth has just become more and more, which we're very proud of, and what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd like to kind of dig in now a bit to some of the AI work, and then just also from building a company, because when as we started our conversation, you mentioned chief marketing officers, and
Yeah,
then we've chatted about Claude Code, and obviously it's almost like when I think of like two areas that have seen the most impact for AI and all of this boom since ChatGPT first launched, especially marketing, right? Content creation, just all there, the user experiences that we're seeing, to coders, right? And just the impact of Claude Code and some of these other tools that we have seen. And so, how are you thinking about that as you're navigating it both internally with clients? What does that do for culture where code is now partially being built by robots? Like, what does that look like?
yeah. So it's definitely a culture shift, but because we're mostly engineers here, it's a welcome shift.
Mhm.
So in all my leadership positions where I had large teams and I'm talking to engineers, and what they're putting in place might not be 100%, or nothing's ever perfect, and the things that they were encountering were, hey, there's a bug in the middle of the night, the website is having an issue, you can't add a card or something like that, so we all had to get on a bridge and fix it. So my mantra was when I was talking to engineers is, yes, do the thing that the product team has written in the user story, but your job is to code yourself out of a job.
Hmm.
Automate it as much as possible so you can sleep at night. And then, by the way, what that's going to do is going to enhance your career. It's going to help the engineer to think differently, not just to do the task, but to become a strategic partner back to the organization. So now, it's been, I guess November will be 4 years since OpenAI launched, ChatGPT, and we've gone from single shot prompting all the way up to creating workflows, and now adding skills to agents, and it's become agentic now. How we approach it is we're a Google shop, so we have Gemini embedded into all of our docs, and we use it for everything from summarizing a meeting to reviewing a document to pointing it at a folder saying, hey, create me a list of X, Y, and Z, or something that'll help me do my job faster.
Mhm.
Obviously, writing emails, marketing outbound. That's just the generic stuff that everybody should be doing, quite honestly. The Where we've taken it to a different level, and we've looked at things, like originally it was, hey, we're going to put Quen on Studio LM, and that's going to be our LLM, and to create code on behalf of our customers to analyze code, to looking at Cursor and now Claude Code. We are not only using that internally to create better code. So an engineer has become And engineers almost become a technology leader, project management of their own
Mm,
area. So they not only have to think about, because there's you're doing things so much faster, there's more
sure.
capacity, but then after you perfect, I'm going to create a web page that's connected to this API and it's going to do X, Y, and Z. Now it's like, okay, what's the next experience for the customer? Or what's the next thing that we need to connect into? And how do you orchestrate those things? And the way we're doing that with our engineers is Claude Code.
Mhm.
We actually have a engagement with a client where they are trying to transform um, their engineering staff and to upskill them. So it's not only a change management
Mm,
engagement of how to think through it differently, how to approach software, but it's also how do you set up the guardrails for your industry that makes sense so you're still in compliance. There's
mm,
still PCI, PII, HIPAA, all those things are still, our SOC 2,
yep.
still very, very important. But how do you do it in a way that can actually drive the productivity or drive the innovation? Quite honestly, a lot of times it's becoming, more innovation.
Mhm.
Uh, Most times in organizations, the engineers are the innovator. If the finger's on keyboard, if you looked at it like 10 years ago, it would be a product person or you know, chief marketing officer would come up with an idea or meet a partner and say, "Hey, I think you guys should try this," and the engineer would actually do it. Now, what's happening is those roles are consolidating into, agentic agents, in our case, Claude Code, where the engineer is not only the innovator of how do I deliver code, but what should we do next, or here's something new in the marketplace that we can challenge ourselves with. Um, and then now, full circle, there's also Claude Cowork. I don't know if you're
Mhm.
familiar with that one too, which is basically how OpenAI made an application, the prompt window, the application on how you interface with AI. There's multiple modals of working with AI, and Claude Cowork is a desktop app that connects all the things that you use on a daily basis, whether it's your email and calendar. And those are generic things, but folder structures, projects, and then you can create agents in there and adding skills, which is something that we're starting to use right now. Because what one thing I'll just caution everybody is once you start using it, it is addictive and it can be expensive if you
Yeah.
let it run all the time.
Yep. That's awesome. Well, you mentioned the kind of the kind of evolving of roles to mention product managers that maybe required a CMO to email someone to set up meetings, and so it's kind of coming together. What does that do for the projects? And earlier you mentioned no one really wants to do the October 1 launch of
Yeah.
post October 1 launch of this stuff because of retail seasons and holiday seasons, and it's like I knew that, but when you said it like as simply as that, I was like, oh yeah, like I'm sure a company doesn't want to roll out like a new like online app
No.
or whatever like in on Black Friday, and so like, but what does that do for what you're all work, especially e-commerce? Like it's such high stakes where you immediately get eyeballs. Something goes wrong, all of a sudden it becomes viral, and people are talking about it, and it's a very you know technology will also often have failures, and that's just part of life, right?
Yeah.
But to have a very public failure, which in e-commerce can is part of the game. How are you thinking about that as these things shift and evolve, and then what do successful launches look like when you kind of tie it all together?
Yeah. I mean, just to before I answer that question, let me just state some things that your audience probably doesn't know. I have launched code, e-commerce software, changes into production, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. In my career, I've also had a Black Friday site outage that
Oh, geez.
resulted in a mention in Wired magazine. So
Sure.
I'm saying that not to say I'm a big deal. I'm saying that how significant it was that
Yeah.
somebody else noticed.
Yeah.
Um, AI isn't going to solve that, because if you make poor decisions and you don't plan it correctly towards a milestone, AI isn't going to solve it. If you don't have enough time to do it, even though AI is faster, you
Mhm.
still need to make sure that the software works. At the end of the day, the software can operate. You can when I say operate it, not just like, from a e-commerce operations team, but also you're getting bugs, logs out of it that'll say if something's wrong. So you still have
Sure.
to have that tuning and that observability. What the way how it looks, what looks good now, and what people should be doing in the future is you still have to do the planning.
Mm.
That's the biggest part of it. Everybody has an idea and get to something very quickly, but then if it's like, okay, you have to test it into the market. The digital space allows this to be fairly easy to launch a product or launch a new experience, and then have two experiences running at once and see which one does better. And that's how you go forward with. You still need that discipline. You still need that product mindset and discipline, which is why we started a product practice to help with that, because it can go faster, but if you don't plan it correctly, you can still have disasters. And
Mhm.
and quite honestly, the thing with AI is, I don't know if this is going to be a surprise to some of your listeners, but like the majority of industries, when I say the majority, like 90%, not the ones you hear in the news, but the ones who have been around for years, are still on mainframes.
Mm.
They're still in some, you know,
Sure.
portion of their software stack, or there's some legacy piece of software that you have to work around that you can't. There's no new software release for some of these systems, so AI isn't going to show up in there, but AI is going to show up around it, and it's how you plan and use it to interface with that, which is why you still have that same planning process. And you know, we run, like I said, 90% of the organization is engineering. It doesn't mean we're going to have, we're going to let people go. Quite honestly, it's the opposite, because as we learn how to use these tools and become more productive, it just makes the software engineering team smaller
Mm.
and more bespoke towards the client's need, which helps a lot with margin
Sure.
and things that we need to grow a company.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, Brennan, fa fascinating insight. So thank you very much. Want to kind of transition, and we can still get to points and kind of insights as part of these, but in the second half, at the end of our sessions, we always like to ask our guests these rapid fire questions. The
Yeah.
questions are quick, but the answers don't necessarily have to be. Again, but first one is, what's a problem you're currently working to solve? So it could be big, it could be small. We've heard them all, from the remote work, this and that, and to navigating AI, to cultural things. But what does that look like? A problem that you're currently working to solve at the moment.
Specific to my role is, since I run sales, and then we have these practices who are going to be kind of general managers of those areas,
Sure.
is how do I enable them with sales? And then once we, do that enablement practice and level set everybody, like, that we're not expected them to create pipeline, but we're
Mhm.
expected to them to, once we have an opportunity in front of us, is how do you close that deal? How do you scale that and build those book of businesses? Along with, I also run the delivery practices. How do we execute on that? So
Mm.
this is the practices, and this many coming together is a new thing for us this quarter. Um, Actually started last quarter. I know we're in Q2 right now, but that's one of those things that I'm working on right now, because we have a lot of momentum from our previous successes.
Mhm.
Everything from Five Below as a client to Slate.auto, um, which is still doing work for both those clients, which is great. But that's a big one. How do you scale the organization, the
Mhm.
back office scaling of it, not always the engineering side of it?
Yeah, that's a great one. And yeah, somehow we are in Q2, and going rapidly into Q2 towards Q3, which it seems like it was just holiday season a few minutes ago. But yeah, here we are. So favorite read, listen, or watch. So a book, a podcast, a show, something technical, or something that you've been into to help decompress, deconnect at the end of the day.
Yeah. So I listen to my favorite podcast that I listen to religiously is the Marketing AI Institute.
Sure. Yeah.
The guys up in Columbus.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, Paul and
Originally, I
company.
started to look at them because I was working with another organization to how do we teach people about AI and write software got a lot of information from them and then reused it and then shared it out and built up a different network and organization. But that one I listen to on a regular basis just to get, hey, what's actually going on, get some opinions, and also just some learnings. We'll actually, and it's in Cleveland, so
Yep.
it's. I'm not just trying to plug Ohio, but
No, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
really
yeah.
do.
Paul and his team are great. Yeah.
Yeah. Paul Reitzer is awesome, and if anything, I'll plug his conference in October,
Yep.
MACON, which will be there.
Awesome. Very great answer. Third one is, and I think perfect for you with people all over the place, all over the country and, across North America, on the team and then clients. Someone's coming to Columbus, Westerville area for, a visit. Where are you taking them for a coffee or a lunch or a dinner to kind of show off?
Yeah, and since we have people that come
Yeah.
for coffee or happy hour, lunch, and dinner, let me just give a couple of them. Fox and Snow.
Yeah.
Great. If you haven't been there, the new location, a lot of seating and all the same quality of food. I think a lot of the pastries I eat in New Albany come from this kitchen now.
Okay.
And then for lunch or dinner, my still favorite spot is North Star.
Yep.
And the I'll call it the expert hack of North Star. Because somebody's like, oh, I don't want to go to a counter and order and let them bring food. It feels like a cafeteria. Just sit at the bar and they'll serve you.
Oh, right. Right. Yeah. Two good ones. And yeah, the both are, kind of dangerous because, yeah, the pastries are incredible at Fox in the Snow. And I actually haven't been to the Westerville one yet, but the Italian Village, Dublin, New Albany, I think. So this may be the fourth, but it's good to hear that they have a lot of seating because that's usually like
Yeah,
it's so popular that finding seats in some of them is incredibly difficult.
and a parking lot.
Yeah, in a parking lot. Yeah, yeah,
Not huge because it's
yeah,
Westerville, but yeah.
yeah,
So I mean, Chris, I guess this is my invitation. Next time
yeah,
you're in Westerville,
yeah.
we'll stop at the Cohatch, but let's
Right.
go over to Fox and Snow.
Yeah, yeah, and then pop over to North Star for lunch, I
Yeah.
like that location too. So yeah, that's love to take you up on that. Final one, Brendan. How are you spending a perfect Saturday? Only caveat: no work can be allowed. So it's not wake up, check emails, see what Claude did overnight, but just completely offline. You're going analog.
Okay, perfect Saturday. Wake up early, work out, still get ready for the day. Just because the weekend doesn't mean anything different to me. And I mentioned at the beginning I'm a self-taught software engineer.
Mhm.
Think about this. I learned Java. I taught myself Java 25 years ago, so I'm not shy of books and different things. But the way I actually relax is I clean.
Okay.
I want a clean kitchen, and so much so that my kids now are starting to do the same thing. Like I'll be gone, on a trip, and I'll come back. I'm like, wow, the kitchen looks really clean, and there's nothing on. I don't like things out on the counter. I like not
Sure.
only clean as in like disinfected, but like clean as in
Yeah, yeah.
visual. Yeah, and it's funny because my kids will go to empty the dishwasher, and just by the way it's stacked in there, they can say, "Oh, mom or dad filled this
Sure.
one." So yeah, it's actually cleaning, and then of course sitting out on my deck with a book in the backyard.
That's a good day. I like that as well. But Brennan, have really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your work. As a final thought, how can people connect, learn more? I mean, we'll put your LinkedIn, we'll put the website in the notes. How can people help? What does that look like? Obviously, you guys are big and growing and doing sounds like some incredible stuff. But what's a final message that you'd want to get out to the Ohio tech sector?
Well, of course, you can find us at ariesolutions.io or LinkedIn. We hold two events every year. We just had supper and slap shots.
Mhm.
We rented a suite and had, I don't know, about 40 people there.
Wow.
And then, of course, beginning of June, there's a memorial event, which we
Mhm.
have another suite, which we're hosting, friends and partners just
Cool.
to, it is an event that, like, yes, we want to network, and it'd be great if everybody would buy our, our services, but it also at the same time say thank you back to the community and just share a nice day of watching golf.
That's awesome. Yeah. The memorial coming up, that's a very Columbus Institute, Cincinnati, they have opening day, the
Yep.
Browns, they have a bunch of stuff, St. Patrick's Day. So it's cool across the state when these different kind of like things that really, matter to our local communities, and the memorials is certainly one of
Yeah.
them. That's great. But everyone listening and watching, thank you so much again. Connect and follow Brendan on LinkedIn, check out their website, what Aries and team are up to. Brendan, again, thank you so much for joining. Thanks for sharing your story, sharing your work. Really appreciate it. And yeah, looking forward to a Fox in the Snow coffee sometime soon up
Yeah,
in
of course.
Westerville.
Thanks for inviting me, Chris. Good conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Brendan. Appreciate it. Have a good day, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.